I think one of the things that we do lose with, well, one of the many things that we lose with this kind of secular Christmas is the darkness itself. Like, that's the other argument that I hear critical Christians say, let's say. You actually lose the fact that it's dark.
Yeah.
Because of all the electric lights, because of Saint Nick, because of the folk stuff, the elves and the making toys in the North Pole, and like you lose the fact, and that's, for me, that's actually one of the beautiful things, that we recognize it's dark. We recognize, like you talked about earlier, how in a way it's not until you reach rock bottom that there is room then for Christ to come in. And it's so hard for people to see that they are rock bottom. There's something within our culture, kind of post-Enlightenment culture, which is about kind of changing the external till it fits what we want to see. And in a way, the excesses of the kind of Christmas culture does that. Like, it puts, you drive past that person's house and they've got like lights everywhere and it's so garish.
Yeah.
And it's just, it seems to be a very modern move to just never stop.
Just banish the darkness completely.
Yeah, just to banish the darkness completely. And so, externally, it's like, whether it's putting up lights everywhere, turning the heating on, making life extremely comfortable, which, is obviously good. Like, I'm not saying we shouldn't, heat our homes, but there's something in this ancient liturgical pattern that the church gives us where actually we recognize where we are. And the idea being in Advent is you recognize it's dark outside. Maybe it's dark inside. Maybe it's dark for you, and you actually recognize that. And then you beckon Christ to come and save us. And so there's something in the kind of modern Christmas that really misses that.
Yeah, and I think in a way you've got this, like, Christ comes at a point where it's almost hopeless. Like, you're almost at a point of hopelessness. The days are getting shorter and shorter, and you're like, this is never going to stop. Eventually, it's just going to be one big night, and the sun's never going to rise again. Yeah. And then you hit this point, and it's then, I think that's why it's important that Advent kind of means coming, because it's like, without that, you're at risk of like falling into total despair, and it's getting, all evidence points towards, if you was to track day by day, all evidence is saying the sun's going away, and the warmth's going away, and the leaves have all died, everything's dying around you, and you're in this, like, really, like you said, very cold, very dark, very difficult time of the year.
I'm completely with you. I do feel like for modern people, it's all of a sudden, the last 100 years, very hard to actually live in that space. Because when you talk about it kind of being hopeless and the sun's going away, again, I mean, we're in this beautiful church, we've got the candles there, but we also have loads of lights on. It is almost so easy to just miss all of that, what our ancient ancestors saw, just to completely miss reality.
Yeah.
Like, it is dark, it is cold, you need to light the fire, like, we haven't got much food, like,
everything's wet.
Everything's wet, everything's really hard. And I think, like, cultural memory and telling stories and things is a way to kind of at least tap into that. You know, like the St. Nicholas legend, and like the girls without dowries. And there's a danger in completely kind of paving over and plastering over and cushioning over reality.
Yes.
Because internally we're finding that with the meaning crisis, that now, the mental health crisis, like, we still suffer. Just because we're not cold, just because we've got our bellies are full, doesn't mean we don't suffer. We're just discovering actually we're suffering in a different way. We're discovering suffering through a lack of meaning. And so, I hear people that say, oh, these guys, you're just like nostalgic for another age, but you should embrace technology and all of that. But I think it's worth just saying, like, things aren't going great for people in terms of like their actual well-being and stuff. And a lot of that is wrought by modernity, the pace of life, again, the lack of meaning. So I think there's something to be said for looking into the what Advent and what the liturgical seasons try to give us in rooting our experience, in church, at home with our families, with nature in a really holistic way.
Yeah. I think what you're basically saying is that we in order to solve our problems, we turn towards the material world for the answers, and that is we most modern people, and I think most people in general, probably think the material world is where we'll find the answers to our problems. And it's by increasing our technological capability and subsequently, or power, to be able to have influence over the world, that's how we'll earn our salvation ultimately. I think that's that's what it is.
They don't use that term, but that is exactly what they mean.
I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
But I think what Jesus is saying is almost, I don't quite think it's the opposite, but he's kind of saying, I don't think he's just saying, he's not claiming that the solution is 100% spiritual, but I think what he's saying is that it's through him. It's through
the union of spirit.
Yeah,
and matter.
that's why he's coming down to earth. It's not that we're just looking up to him and he's just this thing in the sky.
Yeah.
He's coming down to earth so we can see the bringing together of the. Yeah. It's like I mean, as a carpenter, he's doing forms of technology and building things which they're not bad in themselves, but it's the spiritual component that's missing from the modern world. I think
again, it's like as plain as the sort of nose on your face. That is what.